I want to bring in journalist and Scripps News special events anchor Alisyn Camerota. Alisyn, you were also an anchor for both CNN and Fox News. Thank you so much for being with us. You worked with Don and had a very exclusive interview with him just a few days ago for Scripps after the protest at the church in St. Paul, Minnesota. And he said he actually expected to be charged. Let's take a listen to that.
You tell me. With this administration, you don't know. Look, I'm not naive. I think they're probably going to try again and again, as they did with Tish James and Comey and everyone. If one doesn't work, then they try something else, and that fails, and they try something else, and then they just don't give up because they want to save face. But I don't know what's next. I think what's next is that I have to be in it for the long haul, and and just to be strong as always and keep calm and carry on.
Because this federal magistrate judge said that they didn't have a case, basically. The Department of Justice said that they didn't have a case. I mean, the judge said the Department of Justice didn't have a case. But you think that it's not over?
No, I think it's not over. Because it doesn't matter if there's no law to fit. They will try to fit or retrofit something or go around a judge and just do it themselves. And it doesn't matter. And everything that they say pertains to protesters. I was not a protester. I was very clear about that. If you look at all the evidence, I'm not a protester. And so I think, Alisyn, not that I think, I know, I was the biggest name. And so if they get a Don Lemon, woohoo, that's a victory. And also, I'm the one who put the information out there.
So, Alisyn, when you heard that your good friend and former colleague had been arrested, what did you think?
I woke up to that news, Liz, and I was just stunned, as are so many of our journalistic friends and people in the journalism community. It's not unprecedented, but it's very unheard of. The fact that Don was covering a protest, as he has described, in St. Paul, Minnesota on January 18th. He went into a church, which, yes, can be seen as private property, and perhaps there's a case of trespassing against him, but that doesn't normally warrant a journalist's arrest. Don is still in custody up until this afternoon. And so this is just highly unusual. And I think it sent a shockwave through all of my journalistic friends.
And as you said, Don described covering the protest at the church in St. Paul. He was using his phone. And you asked him if he thought he did anything wrong. I want to play that clip.
I have my personal feelings about it. I am a Christian. I am torn about it as a Christian and a journalist, but it's not for me to judge whether the venue's right. It's for me to just report the story, and then we can talk about whether the right venue or wrong venue, but it's up to me to chronicle what is happening in the moment.
Do you think you did anything wrong?
No, I don't, because I waited to go in. I told the folks, don't go on the property. I'm going to go check it out until if there is a disturbance. Then we can go in, because they've already created a situation, I believe, that makes it reportable. And
what does that mean if there's a disturbance? If the protesters?
If the protesters did that. So I said that to my crew. And so I went in just to see, and it started. And then other members of the press started coming in. And then when other members of the press started coming in, I looked over, and my guy, I guess that was a cue for him, and he came in, but I said, okay, I'll just start talking and saying, here's what's happening. But I was very strategic, and because I never got in the scrum. I got in once after I started interviewing everyone, and I let it play out, to go over to ask after, I think it was after I had spoken to the pastor and some of the churchgoers or parishioners. I went over to her and said, what do you think about what you're doing? And they're saying this, that you shouldn't be here, and blah, blah, blah. And I got her reaction, and then I stepped back away, and I just let it play out. I was not chanting or cheering on. If people didn't want to talk to me, I moved on.
So, Alisyn, I'm curious, do you think he did anything wrong? Did he cross a line here?
I mean, you heard what Don said, that he hadn't planned to go inside the church, that he followed the protesters in there when he realized that that's where all the action was and that that's where the protest was happening. It wasn't happening outside. Once he got in there, he began live streaming, and he made a point of interviewing all sides. He interviewed the pastor. He interviewed parishioners who were in there. He interviewed the protesters. So he was basically just giving his viewers an idea of how everything was unfolding inside the church. That's generally what journalists do. Whether or not he violated a trespassing law isn't for me to decide. I mean, that's up to the judge. But again, the idea that he would be arrested for that is what makes what happened today so unprecedented.
Yeah, and what message does his arrest say to other journalists?
That's exactly right, Liz. I mean, it's very hard for this not to have a chilling effect on journalists wondering what the line is. What can they do? Normally, as you well know, we cover demonstrations, we cover protests. That's part of our job. So now what's the line? How do we know that we won't be arrested? And by the way, it's not just Don Lemon. There was another journalist arrested today at the same time, last night, at the same time that Don was, as well as others who have been intimidated and threatened. So it is a very confusing time to be practicing journalism.
Absolutely. And it's worth noting, Don Lemon is now an independent journalist. There are more independent journalists now more than ever just using their cell phones to get close to stories. Many have called Nick Shirley a journalist, and all journalists should be protected under the First Amendment. But do you think that line is getting blurred with this style of reporting?
Definitely. I mean, I know that viewers are confused about who is a real journalist, who can they trust, because as you say, once you have a cell phone, you can record things, you can stream yourself live. I talked to Don about this in our exclusive sit-down interview, which was exactly 1 week ago when he predicted that the DOJ was going to keep coming after him. He did have a sense that at some point they would try to charge him and possibly arrest him. That's what happened. And basically, he said that you have to be trained in journalism. You have to follow the rules of journalism. Not all people with a camera are doing that. But Don still is. I mean, Don makes the argument that he is still following all of the rules of journalism that you and I learned in journalism school, and that that's what separates his independent journalism from just anybody with a camera.
Now, in this sit down with Don Lemon, you also asked him about how Nicki Minaj has inserted herself into this controversy. Minaj took aim at Lemon over the protest at the St. Paul Church on social media. She wrote in part, quote, "How dare you? I want that thug in jail." Her words, he would never do that to any other religion. Let's listen to what Don Lemon had to say about that.
To say that you're a Christian and you're calling me out as a Christian and you know, I wouldn't do that to any other religion. Did she not recall the 2012 Grammy Awards when the Catholic Church came after her, when they said her performance at the Grammys was sacrilege? When the Catholic League and all of those folks and Christians were coming after her for her egregious performance at the Grammys? She's a hypocrite. And also, reportedly, she's possibly an undocumented person. She has said that she's undocumented. She came as a child, and I don't know if she's ever registered to be a citizen. And if that is true, under those rules, which are under Donald Trump's rules, she should be picked up, detained, reported, and deported. And those are the people she's cozying up next to. The people who are protesting for the rights for people like her, who may not be documented or otherwise, immigrants in this country. And she is an immigrant. So I said, why do African Americans support her? Why do gay people support her? Members of the LGBTQ community support her? You shouldn't, because she's a homophobe and she's a racist. She's racist against, I believe, Black Americans.
So, Alisyn, how do we get here? Don Lemon versus Nicki Minaj.
I mean, as you put up there, the tweet that she put out, which was vulgar, what she said about Don. Many people interpreted it as a homophobic slur. And then Don, as you just heard there, was not pulling his punches. He was going after her. He went after her husband at some point during that interview. You know, Don Lemon, when I worked with him at CNN for the 10 years that we worked together, I was always struck by how he had a fearless quality on the air, and he didn't shy away from controversy. And I would say that now, ever since he's left CNN and become an independent journalist, he has leaned into that more. Now he is free to say whatever he wants and to engage with anyone who insults him. And so I think that we just saw that on display with him returning fire with Nicki Minaj there.
He is not afraid to ruffle a few feathers, that's for sure. Alisyn, thank you so much for being with us. Congratulations on the new position at Scripps. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Liz. Great to see you.